This lesson is on at-risk population. Our objectives for this lesson are to discuss the different populations at risk. We're going to look at human trafficking, domestic violence, pediatric patients, geriatric patients, as well as polypharmacy patients. We're going to discuss unique characteristics of at-risk populations. Determine the appropriate actions of EMTs when we're dealing with these at-risk patients. We're also going to recognize situations that may indicate the abuse of these patients, whether it be domestic abuse, human trafficking, or non-accidental trauma. And we're also going to discuss the appropriate actions when EMTs are in the presence of an abused patient. So let's look at human trafficking, considered to be modern-day slavery. Humans are being trafficked through force, physically, mentally, fraud. They think they're going to get paid, they're going to get something out of doing this, or coerced. They have something on this person. They think they owe them, so they coerce them into doing these acts. Humans are being trafficked for different things. They're being trafficked for labor. They're being trafficked for sex or domestic servitude. So we're going to take a look at these different trafficking things that are going on. So again, we're looking at human trafficking today. We look at human smuggling versus human trafficking. There are differences. A human smuggler is someone that takes a person and illegally moves them from one border to another. So they're taking them across borders. That is considered to be human smuggling. Human trafficking, on the other hand, is exploiting people. Again, exploiting them into doing labor for them, exploiting them into some type of sex trade, or exploiting them, again, to domestic servitude. Human trafficking is a very profitable business. Let's make no mistake that it is a crime and is a violation of human rights. It occurs around the world, in the U.S., and make no mistake, it happens here in Rhode Island. Again, human trafficking can be a U.S. citizen, could be from another country, could be any age group, race, gender, right? And most often these people are vulnerable, or there's some way that they can exploit this out of these people. Sex trafficking. Again, these victims are manipulated or forced against their will into doing these things. Remember that a lot of them are very vulnerable. They may need something, or they may have things to hide that they don't want to get out. So they're forced into these things. All right. So again, they can use threats against these people. They owe them money, or they hold their green card against them. They have things that these people don't want to get out to other people. Violence, someone that they know sometimes, or even they don't know, but threats of violence against them. They'll, give them a good beating if they don't do what they're told to do. Again, and these are very vulnerable people. Manipulation. Sometimes these people just are very easily manipulated into things. Low self-esteem, those kind of things. So they're manipulated into doing these things even though they don't want to. And another one is, the promise of love and affection. Some of these people just need that love and affection. They think these people really care about them, when in turn they're just there to make money off of them. Let's take a look at some places that we're going to find people that are being trafficked for sex. Truck stops is a popular place. Hotel rooms, around hotels, and so if we have victims, we go to a hotel, abused, that we can tell, might want to think about that, question what's going on. Rest areas, another popular place. And just your street corners alone, so it can be popular spots. Certain areas are popular for that. Just remember that, in Rhode Island here, we have a place that has a truck stop with a hotel, and it's a rest area, and it's popular for these types of things to be going on. Any person that's under the age of 18 involved in a commercial sex act is considered to be a human trafficked person. So we need to determine their age, And if there's something going on, again, we need to alert the proper authorities and get these people help. Forced labor, another type of human trafficking. These victims are forced or they're coerced into working for little or no money. Remember that these people are afraid. They believe that the people that are trafficking them have something on them or can do things to them to get them either thrown out of the country, or they, physically and mentally force these people into this type of work. Many are forced to work in manufacturing, or they work on farms, places that we find them. A lot of times, we'll see them in different, you've seen all the things with the Home Depots where these people go up and you get somebody to go work for cheap money. So these types of things are going on here in the U.S. They work to make and grow things for us in the United States. Stuff that we consume every day, stuff that we use every day is actually produced or grown by a lot of these people. We don't even see it, but we get cheap products from things. Places that we could find some of these victims of forced labor: in factories, again, like I stated earlier, on farms, on construction sites, in small businesses, in the little back rooms. You have the storefront where you see the people that are running these operations, but in the back room are these, we'll call it slave labor. So we get somebody injured, something happens, there's a fire, something that we're all called in for some type of incident, and we start seeing these things. We need to keep an eye out and look for clues, other things that are going on when we're dealing with these victims. Domestic servitude. These are victims. A lot of times they're hidden in plain sight. We don't even know that they are victims of human trafficking. A lot of times you find them in homes working for people, and sometimes it's people don't even know that they're being trafficked, but they have this cheap help that's coming in. Hotels. We all seen these seedy hotels. How do they keep the prices down? You get these trafficked people, this slave labor. Cleaning services can also be another one where we'll find these people. All right, so they're out there in the service industry, making little to no money because someone's profiting off of them, and we don't even know that they're being trafficked. A lot of times they're used as nannies. They could be maids. We'll see that in hotels or in, again, domestic help in houses. Trafficking or traffickers often take the victims' passports, travel papers, identification papers. It limits their freedom. They can't go anywhere. They have something over them. They hold it over their head. And this is how they get involved, and this is why they can't get away from it. Every year, thousands of cases of human trafficking are reported. But remember, there are many of those that go unnoticed because they're a hidden crime. So there are many that are not reported. The victims are afraid to come forward. And we need to look for things. We need to recognize signs of these people. We go to someone, they're shy, they're reluctant to talk to us. We notice injuries that, are been there for a while. We need to start questioning and find out what's going on. Again, remember, these are crimes, and they're hidden in the shadows. And if you suspect something, we have that obligation to do something. So again, like the saying is, if you see something, say something, do something. When we have these victims out there, some of the signs that we need to look for or pay attention to: bruises in various stages of healing, new bruises with old bruises, they've been there for a while, scars, mutilations, or infections. Again, they're not getting the medical attention that they should be getting. Urinary difficulties, pelvic pain, rectal trauma, pregnancies. We could be dealing with someone in the sex trade, and these are some of the things that we're seeing. Again, they're not getting the medical attention they need, and they need help. They need us to recognize what's going on. Chronic back pain, hearing loss, cardiovascular, respiratory problems that are not treated, again, they're not getting that medical attention. Poor eyesight or eye problems, a lot of times this is due to working in low light places. They're malnourished. They're not getting their food. They get enough just to survive, and they go to work every day, and they get little or nothing out of working. Dental problems could be a big thing for these people also. They could be disoriented, confused, phobias. They're afraid of people. They don't want to come near us. Why? Because they're being abused, and they don't want anybody to know what's going on, because they don't want to be deported, lose their family because they have something held over them. All right. And again, they can have panic attacks when we start dealing with these. So all signs that we need to look for when we think that there's some type of trafficking going on, we need to put these clues together. Challenges that EMS are going to face when dealing with these victims. Unreliable historians trying to get information from people about the victim that we're dealing with. Difficulty relaying the information. Previous medical history they have. We're just not getting this information. They don't want to talk, or they're afraid to talk. Medications that they take, what are they taking? Probably nothing for what they're dealing with. Current therapies, anything that they're being treated with, some type of therapy. We're not going to get this information. The reliance on the caregivers. A lot of times these caregivers aren't going to give us information about these people. Again, this is not something that they want to get out, that these people are being used for little or no money, and they're just being used for what they can get out of these people. Interpreting the patient's verbal or nonverbal communications. You're dealing with these patients, it's tough, whether you don't understand their language, or they just don't want to say anything, don't speak. One of the things you might want to do when you're dealing with these people is what's their eyes? If that person that's trafficking them is in the area, they're going to be staring off and looking at that person and not looking at you, making sure that they're not going to get in trouble for what's going on. Another thing we need to do is assess the environment. What's going on in the area? And again, you need to be that detective. Look for those clues. So let's look at domestic violence. Domestic violence affects many different people. It affects the victim, but can also affect their families. It can affect their children, friends, and it can also affect as far out as even into the community. A person that is not the victim can see things going on. So children can see their mothers being abused. Again, this affects them mentally. They see things going on, and they try to keep these things quiet. They don't want people to know. They don't want their mother or father, for that matter, to be getting hurt, to be going through this kind of things. So it can affect the whole family. Friends, friendship with people. A lot of times these people often don't have many friends. Someone is being abused. So they don't have a lot of friends out there. And if they do have friends, it's tough for them to talk about what's going on. So they're shy, quiet, and reserved. And also, again, it gets out into the communities. It affects everybody. I'm sure we all grown up and seeing that family. Remember that family in the neighborhood. So it can get out into the community. Victims are often affected during abuse, but as well as after the abuse. Remember, physically, they can be getting abused, but afterwards, that mental torment that goes on also. So physically and mentally, before, during, and after, can be affecting these victims. So here we have a definition of what domestic violence is. And again, it's the pattern of an abusive behavior in any relationship that is used by one person to gain or maintain power and control over another. Domestic violence can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter your race, your age, education level, sexual orientation, occupation, religion, or your gender. Domestic violence occurs in any type of relationship out there. Whether it's an intimate, you can be close and intimate and still have an abusive relationship. Cohabitating, people living together. And you don't have to be in an intimate relation, but just living in the same space. And it can be domestic violence, whether it be physical or mental. Dating a person, you meet this person, you start dating, they're the greatest person on earth. But then as this dating goes on, you start to find out who that real, true person is. Engaged people can be in abusive relationships. And again, they don't know how to get out or how to get away from it. Married people are abusive. Their children, can also feel the effects of this abuse going on. So post-separation, after these people are separated, that violence or that can still be going on, that abusive relationship, as well as post-divorce. These relationships can still continue even though you've severed your ties. Here are some statistics to look at to just give us an idea what's happening across this country. 24 people per minute are a victim of rape, physical violence, or stalking in this country. 1 in every 3 women and 1 in every 4 men have experienced rape, physical violence, or stalking. 1 in 10 women have been raped by an intimate partner. 1 in 4 women experience severe physical violence. And 10% of women are stalked by an intimate partner. Here is something to think about when it comes to children. Every year, 3.3 million children are exposed to violence against their mother or a female caretaker. The number 1 predictor of child abuse is domestic abuse against women. Child abuse occurs in 30 to 60% of the homes where domestic violence occurs. Gives you something to think about. Some of the types of domestic violence we're going to take a quick look at are physical abuse. We're going to look at sexual abuse, verbal abuse, financial abuse, and stalking. I know we all know what physical abuse is, but some of the examples that we have are somebody being punched, slapped, or hit. Punched, you can see things from. Slapped, the redness will go away. Hitting can leave scars. Kicking, cutting, and stabbing. Well, physical abuse. Weapons could be used, whether it be a gun, knife, or a blunt instrument. Biting and scratching and burning someone. Pushing and shoving. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's physical abuse. It's physically somebody doing something to someone else to make them feel less than what they are. Restraining somebody, tying them to something so they can't go anywhere. Restraining them in the house, locking the door so they can't get out, locking them in the basement, in a closet. Strangling someone and holding them down. Where are we going to find these wounds when we're dealing with these patients? They can be on the face, something we're going to see. Typically, an abuser isn't going to do something to someone where you can see it. Their arms, up high, you can wear sleeves, cover it up. Down lower, it's a harder thing to hide. Their head, again, typically don't do things that are seen. But we can find, someone goes off the deep end and just goes berserk, and they can have these injuries. On the back and the buttocks, again, these are harder places for us to notice, to see things. The only way we're going to find these if the victim is willing to show us, to let us know the abuse that's going on. The breast, again, sexual assault. There can be injuries to the breast. And again, we're not going to see this unless these victims are willing and able to do this. The abdomen, another area of abuse, hidden well, hidden easily. Genitalia, again, is another place. We are not going to notice unless this victim is willing to deal with that. And they may not be wanting to talk to us. It may be something that we need to get them to the hospital and get them the correct help that they're going to need at a medical facility. Remember that we're going to have different injuries that are in different stages of healing. So this is an abuse that's going on and continues to go on. And like I've been saying, they're going to try and conceal these injuries if they don't want it to be known or to get out there. Maybe very reluctant to let us know about what's going on or show us any of these injuries. Physical or verbal abuse, humiliation to a person, making them feel like they're useless, they're not worth anything. Isolation, keeping them separated, not letting them have friends. Degradation, degrading these people. Again, you're worthless, you're useless. The only reason you're here is because this is the only thing you can do. Diminishing self-worth or self-esteem. A lot of times, again, we're going to see this in these people. They're going to be quiet, reserved. They're not going to talk to us or want to talk to us. It's going to be tough to get information out of these victims. They could have something on these victims. They could be blackmailing them. They saw something or they did something that they know about or their family, so they blackmail these people. And again, intimidation, whether it be violence to them or it could be violence to someone in their family, right? So they intimidate these people into doing what they want for them. Sexual abuse. Again, quite often we think sexual abuse and it's, right off the bat, it's rape, which obviously sexual abuse is rape. These people are assaulted, things are done to them. But there's also forcing the victim to watch someone else in their family or watch them with other people other than themselves. So they're forced to watch. They're forced into pregnancy. They make them get pregnant, so there's nothing else that they can do. They can't leave this person. Or it could also be the termination. They've done something to injure this person to where they miscarry. Forced anal or forced oral sex. Right? Something that these people don't want to do and they're forced into it. In unwanted touching. It doesn't have to be penetration or anything. It can also be unwanted touching itself. Economic and financial abuse. These abusers keep these people where they don't have enough money and they have to depend on the abuser. They prevent the victims from having or keeping a job. They do things so that they lose their job or they don't allow them to get a job. They interfere with the victims maintaining a job, sabotaging things. They do things so they lose their daycare, do things to their transportation so they can't get to work or don't take them to work. Harassing the victims at work. They do things at their workplace and the employer just doesn't want to deal with this and the person gets fired. Taking the victim's money. You make money, you bring it into this house, it's my money. They take the money from them, don't allow them to have their own money. And again, controlling the victim's financial information. Doing things, whether it be on the internet or through banking, and control what these people have for money and what they can do with it. So let's look at stalking. It doesn't sound like a domestic violence thing, but it is. The act of stalking is just following a victim. That person is just everywhere that someone goes. They got to know where they are. They follow them. Make sure they know what they're doing at all times. Who are they with? They appear at places uninvited. All of a sudden you just show up and there's that person again. Like, what are they doing here? How do they get here? How do they know what's going on? How do they know where I would be? Can be harassing calls, texts, and emails. Just constantly trying to get a hold of you. Or you've asked them not to come around, but then they start texting you and threatening emails and calls. Could come down to vandalizing your property. Again, you've asked them or you've told them to stay away, and now they get mad. They start doing things. They vandalize property. Another thing you can do is, this person is giving unwanted gifts, messages, flowers, those kind of things. Sometimes, again, we all know this creepy person out there that's stalking. We've all talked about them. So how do victims cope with these things? They minimize, they downplay the behavior of the person. He just had a bad day, so they downplay what's going on with the person. Denial, they don't want to admit that the abuse even happened at all. They just put their blinders on and try to put it out of their head. Find an explanation for the abuser's behavior. They try to rationalize why it happened. Oh, I made him mad, I shouldn't have said that. So they try to sometimes put it on them. They try to make excuses for it. Drugs and alcohol, again, they'll do this just to numb the pain of what's going on. Someone that's an alcoholic or a drug abuser, sometimes we don't know what's going on with them. Other things can be going on that we don't know about. And yeah, they're using a lot of alcohol or drugs, but they're trying to put the stuff out of their mind, to forget the stuff, to go away for a while. And like I said earlier, self-blame, making excuses or reasons why it's their fault that the abuse happened, instead of the abuser that has the problem, that needs something to be done to stop this abuse. It's not their fault. So what do we need to do as EMS professionals to help these victims? One of the big things is trying to explain to that nobody deserves this type of abuse for any reason at all. That can be easier said than done sometimes. Things that we can do are find resources to help these victims, whether it be a shelter to get them away so they have a safe place, getting a restraining order to keep that person that is abusing them, to keep them away. Crisis intervention. Sometimes it's getting a hold of somebody at the hospital or somewhere else that can get in touch with these people and help them out, to intervene with the situation that's going on. Same thing as the abuse advocates, people out there that can help them get what they need to get out of those abusive situations. And law enforcement is another one. A lot of times these people don't want law enforcement involved, but a lot of times, they're the ones that can get these advocates, these restraining orders, these types of things going to help these victims out. Again, understand why the victim may stay. No matter what you do, no matter how hard you try to get these victims to separate, to go away, go to a shelter, they don't want to do it. It's a hard thing to do, but it's their control, it's not ours. Some other unique situations that we have with at-risk patients. Let's look at pediatrics. Nonverbal. It's hard to get things out of a child that can't verbalize. We need to look for these clues. Wide ranges of development. So we can see a child that are in, geez, this kid's a big kid. He should be doing this or saying this at this point. Could be or could not be. Things that we need to look at. Their dependence on adults for protection or prevention. Again, sometimes, they go to these abusers because they don't want to do something wrong to get in trouble. So, again, they're there for protection sometimes to the abuser. And we need to look for these clues and try to figure these things out. Illness or injury patterns, a place that we go quite often, for different types of things. we need to start cluing ourselves in to things that are going on. Look at the home surroundings. Look for clues, signs of things that could be wrong. Geriatric patients, again, they're very fragile. Again, they're older people. Dementia patients can be tough to deal with. They don't understand what's going on sometimes. You try to talk to these people and they just don't understand what's going on. Or sometimes they think that their caregiver is the threatening person when they're not. And they can be. So we need to look for these signs in Alzheimer's, delirium, dementia. It's tough to deal with these people, and we need to really look for clues, get some information on what's going on, other family members, and find out what's going on. Really need to spend some time with these patients. Polypharmacy is a situation where someone's on, they say 5 or more drugs. It could be less, it could be more. It all depends on who you talk to. But someone on a number of different meds can be doing things to people that changes them and who they are. So these crosses of meds counteract with other meds. So sometimes just looking at the meds that these people are on, need to pay some more attention to how they counteract with each other. And you have patients with loss of independence. It can be tough for them. They can get very abusive, very violent. You take something away from someone that's had something and they're used to having it, and there's reasons that it needs to be taken away, but they don't understand that. So we need to, they can be the abuser as well as they can also be abused. So again, keen eyes on our job, clues that we need to look at to figure out what's going on with these patients. So in conclusion here, human trafficking, again, hides in everyday life for us in the United States, in the world, right here in Coventry. We need to be aware of the surroundings. Again, we need to have a key eye and pay attention to signs and symptoms of the patient as well as their surroundings. We need to look at physical stuff that's going on. Are they abused? Do they have bruises? Some victims, again, remember, they're going to try and hide these injuries. Mentally, these victims, they may be shy, timid, unwilling to talk to us because they're afraid of getting that abuser mad at them. Fearful, the victim may, again, look in other areas for answers. Remember, that abuser may be in a room. We don't know that they're an abuser, but they keep just looking at that person to get am I doing it right? Or am I going to get in trouble? Am I saying the wrong thing? Are they getting mad? And remember, victims are frightened. All right, so we need to be kind to them. Talk to them passionately and reassuringly that we're going to help. Okay? What they don't need is someone else yelling at them or making them scared or upset. We need to be passionate, reassuring, and understanding of these patients. In domestic violence, again, remember this affects everyone's, no matter their age, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, social economic backgrounds. It affects everybody. It is preventable, so we need to do what we can to stop these situations that are going on for these victims. And EMS should be willing and able to take steps to inform the victims about domestic violence and get them the community resources they need to stop this. Thank you. I hope this was informative.